Miss E.T., gonna help us today. My good friend and yours, Tom Stahl, how are you?
Hi there. Oh, very well. Especially now I have a spirit guide who's come to me, see.
Oh, how cool. Yeah. I'm not sure if that's a cat half of the time.
You don't know. I mean, the Bible says, be kind to strangers, although Miss E.T.'s not a stranger. Be kind to strangers, some have entertained angels unawares.
Yeah.
The angels come to us unawares.
How cool. You know, the show today is called John of God. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our the friends and viewers to your trip to Brazil that you took in June.
That's right, in June and the early part of July. It was a 2-week trip spanning last part of June and early part of July.
Unknown to you, I'm trying to get the permission to play the whole tape of the surgery here at a later time.
Oh, that's the documentary made by Vision Thang from Chicago, and they went to the Casa and filmed over a several-day period, and they filmed all different aspects of what happens there. It's just a beautiful tape, and I love the music. When people hear, and hopefully you'll have permission to play the music that's on the tape too, when people hear that, they will get the feeling that you get when you're there. Music is very much part of the Casa. They're playing music all the time, kind of a beautiful new age soothing music, and the music itself puts you in a meditative space, and you'll hear it, and it's very similar to some of the music we're hearing right now, actually, with the birds.
It's just birds, no music. Yeah.
Oh, no music, that's right.
But you know, I did listen, I did look at the tape, you know, I was up all night putting clips together, but it's not new age. That is sort of a spiritual Peruvian music. Okay. Yeah, it's really kind of cool. So I have to make a call to Brazil, and if it all works out, in a week or so, I'll show you some graphic. We have to label it graphic.
Oh, it's graphic, yes.
Yeah. Material. So anyway, just in case you're wondering, you are at a visit with a person of high strangeness, in case you forgot. And you only come once a year here, huh?
Once a year. Actually, maybe it's been a couple of years, I'm not sure.
Last time you was in the studio, your father died.
That's
unknown to us.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. And so I'm really glad that you came, and then you got Miss Patricia to come last night.
Yes, she came and you filmed her, and she told about her impressions and experiences. And that's good to get two people's perspective. No two people see everything exactly alike. And so when we first came, we had already seen the video by Vision Thang about John of God before we actually went there. And the first day we were there, it's on a Wednesday. Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, they have their healing services, and you come in the morning, and there's a gathering in the main hall, and people meditate and pray, and then pretty soon some of the leaders come out, and they help you pray together. Everybody starts with the Lord's Prayer, Our Father who art in heaven, and then Hail Mary. Those two prayers, usually the Lord's Prayer first, then Hail Mary, both in English and in Portuguese, and sometimes in Portuguese first, then in English. And then after the prayer, that particular day, we were there on a Wednesday morning, John was there, and he came out, and he was, interesting, he was barefoot. He was walking barefoot on the stage.
I'm a peaceful person.
I'm glad to see that, since you have that in your hand.
Where I'm going, this is the beginning. And so we're going to play the insert, because we've already talked about that.
Okay.
And so you, real quick, you got Miss, I'm setting up for a clip here, you got Miss Patricia Michael.
Yeah, she went, yeah.
To come here last night. We filmed the insert, so I'm going to go right to the insert now, and then we'll get back to
Okay, then we'll get back to what we
story.
saw the first day.
Okay, cool.
Book. Got your book, yeah, and then Patricia, I'm so glad that you came, because we couldn't get you tomorrow, so we are really happy that you're going to tell us about your trip. Now, what I want to know is, I'm sure there's two stories here. I'm kind of familiar how you got, how you wanted to go and why you went. So let me hear your story for a minute here. You just went along with Tom, did you?
That's right, I did. I felt that I needed some spiritual awakening, something in my life that would add to my experience of life and to spiritually heal me. So I decided to go with Tom. Initially, he went to receive some healing for some back problems that he had. But then he graciously agreed to allow me to go with him.
Wasn't that wonderful, Tom? Tom Stahl, the gracious person here.
Well, I didn't see myself as a gatekeeper trying to either let someone go or not. It's just that I was been interested in this for a couple of years, actually, and then I got both a book and a video, and this book, and I was talking about it all the time. And finally, you know, Pat says, well, you talk about it so much, would you mind company on the trip? I says, oh, I'd love to have you. I just didn't know you were interested in going. It's a long ways. She says, oh, it's a long ways, but it sounds exciting, and I would really like to. And I says, oh, fine, I would love to have you. You know, it's wonderful to have companionship when you go a long, long ways away, thousands of miles. I've never been to South America before, and having someone to share it with me was wonderful.
That was cool. Now, somewhere along the line, if I remember right, I could have gotten to that picture if I'd wanted to.
Yes.
I just couldn't. I was busy chasing other stuff.
Well, this very book that I'm holding, I think I sent this to you.
Yeah.
And with the idea that, would you like to go here?
Yeah, I know. So I did appreciate the invite. Okay. But short-handed today. So you decide to go to Brazil, and tell me, was it hard to get visas and things like that?
Hard to get what?
Visas.
It took some time to get our visas and our passports. You have to plan ahead. You have to get photos taken for both of them, and that's somewhat stressful. But we got everything together on time. And you want to hear a little about our flight?
Well, sure.
Well, we flew on June 22nd from Seattle to Chicago. That was the short flight. Then we flew on a 10-hour flight from Chicago to Sao Paulo, Brazil. And that was very interesting because on the back of the seat of the person in front of you, you have a little screen. It's like a movie screen. And you have your choice of various movies throughout the flight. But the most interesting one is your flight itself. One selection is that you have the plane and you see where it is on a map.
Oh,
and you
cool.
see yourself progressing throughout the flight, and they tell you the temperature and your speed and where you are. And so, you know, you kind of know where you are, and the pilot doesn't have to tell you.
Oh, how cool.
And then when we got to Sao Paulo, we took a bus from one airport to another, and then we took another flight on a Brazilian airline to Brasilia, which is the capital. And then from Brasilia, we caught a bus to the town of Abagiania, where John of God has his casa.
Tom, I take it you did not ever get bored watching that plane going on to A to point B, did you?
Well, I was never bored on the airplane flight because I was rereading this book, and also I was trying to study my little handbook on conversational Portuguese, because in Brazil they speak Portuguese, not Spanish, but Portuguese, and there are some similarities, but there's enough differences that if you know Spanish, you'll still have a hard time getting by. You need to learn some Portuguese, and it's a little harder language to learn.
I saved my message, you know, I still haven't.
Oh, where was I? Was I saying hello and,
he
how are
was
you
calling doing? And he left a message half Portuguese and half English.
Como vai, a senhora?
There you go.
About the only thing I remember, which is how goes it, and it's formal too. How goes the senora?
He left your phone number in Portuguese, you know.
Can I mention something about the visas you asked about? That was hard to get visas. The visas were taken care of really through the travel agent, and the travel agency was BACC Travel, BACC. It's Brazilian American Cultural Center in New York City, and they are the people that our tour guide goes through and recommends. Our tour guide was Heather Cummings. Because I don't speak Portuguese, I thought I want to go on a tour and have a tour guide who speaks Portuguese and English, and then, you know, she told us how to make the arrangements. And so the BACC Travel got us the visas for a certain fee. They would get us the visas if you gave them enough lead time. And you want to get, you know, start out planning this thing about, you know, 3 or 4 months at least in advance.
Oh,
Make sure you have the visas in time. Oh, I keep running on and on.
No, go ahead. I'm trying to go to your exciting trip.
Okay, one thing that I was always concerned about, since I have turned away from the idea of vaccines, I'm not in favor of taking vaccines. I was nervous about, do they require vaccines to go to Brazil? No, they do not.
They do not.
If you have lived in a country that has yellow fever, they will. But if you're coming from the United States, no. So we were able to go vaccine-free, no needles in our arms.
Wonderful. Yeah, some of the details we can go into in the studio, because this is an insert. Okay. Let me stick with you for a minute, if I may. Now, that was your first experience with a spiritual group of people of that nature, was it?
Yes, it was. There were a great mixture of people that we were with, some from California, many from California. I guess you might call them New Agers, but of all religious persuasions. John of God is very unbiased about other religions other than his own, which would probably be Catholic. And the other group of people that we noticed were from the East Coast. So the two coasts were very well represented. People of all professions, ages. Of course, most of them are somewhat affluent because the trip itself is fairly costly, just the distance. But very open-minded people.
Okay, you are in Brazil, and tell me, what goes through your mind?
What goes through my mind when we flew into Sao Paulo was how very large the city is, and how the infrastructure is very dilapidated, dangerous. When you see or hear about earthquakes in some of the third world countries, demolishing huge sectors of the population, you can see how it happens, because the cement in their curbing and in their high-rises is of a very low quality. And so some of the people are living in some danger, especially where there's earthquakes. But I was fascinated with everything, because you're really in a different world.
Different world. Now, brief explanation of who John of God is.
John of God is a healer who is a medium for healing spirits. And he's always, throughout his life, had a connection to the spirit world or the psychic world. Even when he was very young and didn't understand the full explanations of these things, he would have premonitions that things were about to happen. One of the stories in this book, and there are other books written about him, are that when he was very young, like about 8 years old, he told his mother, they lived in the countryside in a poor region of Brazil, and he was born in poverty. He said, we better get under the table in the kitchen, because there's a storm coming. And they no sooner got down on their knees under the table than a huge storm came and blew through the house, and things fell, and they were protected under that heavy wooden table from things crashing. And he didn't understand what that meant, and neither did his mother, that he knew ahead of time the storm was coming. But the spirits were like with him and around him from a young age.
From a young age on. Now, how did that compare to, now earlier in the year before, you went to a group healing from a Christian denomination.
Yes,
how did that compare?
I did. Well, there are some similarities and a great many differences. The similarities are, I went to a Benny Hinn revival meeting in Jacksonville, Florida in February of 2002. And then in June of 2003, just a little more than a year later, I take the long trip to Brazil, and I spend 2 weeks at the Casa of Dom Inácio, the Casa of St. Ignatius Loyola, which is John's healing house, his healing center in Abagiania, which is a fairly small village in Brazil, but about 100 miles from the capital, Brasilia, in the kind of the high hill country of Brazil. And okay, the similarities are both events are centered on something outside of the physical body, okay, outside of what we think of as standard medicine. In the Benny Hinn crusade, he asks you to have faith in Jesus. You do a lot of singing and praying, and then he comes and preaches a sermon, and then he says, I can feel the Spirit of God moving. And one thing that happens at Benny Hinn revivals is, and it's become a trademark, he will turn around and face the choir, and that's a large choir, and it's a volunteer choir, but they sing beautifully. There's about 300 of them. He'll wave his arm and say, fire, and they will fall down, which is evidence that something spiritual is happening. However, Benny Hinn doesn't ordinarily do any operations on any sick person. He waits for the Spirit of God to move, and then sick people will, there's workers in the crowd, and if you feel like you've gotten a healing, you raise your hand, and they will ask you to come up on the stage, and then he'll interview you about your healing. And then sometimes Benny Hinn will touch people, and they will fall down. There's a lot of falling down. Okay, so that's the Benny Hinn crusade. I personally did not actually witness any healing at the Benny Hinn crusade, although the crowd was gigantic. There must have been, 15,000 or so. Now, at the Casa, it's very different. It's much more peaceful, and the attention that you get is much more individual. And what happens at the Casa is there is a sermon to build your faith outside of the inner rooms. And then after the sermon, you will begin your journey single file through these rooms. And as you go into the rooms, there are people meditating in there, and they're asking the spirits to cleanse you. And you begin feeling some strong emotions as this happens. And then you go into finally the inner room where John is, and he has either invisible or visible operations, and you choose as to which you would like to have. They're both as effective. Then I chose a visible. That means that he will touch you. And when he touches you, things happen. He actually touches you. See, Benny Hinn waits until you're healed, and then he talks to you, and then he touches you and you fall down. But when I came in, I was in a meditating mode, and then John touched me, and then this energy comes into you. And I fell backwards. I fell too. I experienced it, here. What happens at a Benny Hinn revival, I experienced down there in the Casa. I fell, and they had a wheelchair ready for me. So I had to fall on the floor.
Yeah.
And then they wheeled me into the recovery room. But then they help you into like cots or beds, and you lay there, and then more work is being done. You can feel this energy coming through your body. And my back, I went for a bad back. My back hurt more then than it ever had.
But that's part of the healing process.
I think so. I think it's a healing process.
So most of us know that. Now I'm going to interrupt you. Tell you about the places I go to, and that was one of the feelings I was trying to project. When you go to a group of people of like mind, you see no color, no races, no money. It's just you all have a common goal. Did you?
Yes. Everyone was very supportive of one another and coming into the group as strangers. But we all knew, without even saying it almost, that we were there to be healed, whether it was spiritual or physical or mental healing. We all had a common purpose, and we were very supportive of each other.
Okay, thanks.
The experience with John of God was very hands-on. There was a much smaller group of people than Benny Hinn. There were maybe 100 to 150 people there at any one time. I have never been an extremely religious person, but I started feeling a great deal of spirituality, and I found it very easy to believe that I could be helped by the spirits that were drawn into the Casa. It was just amazing. I have become much less of a skeptic.
Yeah, so now that you're back home?
When I came back home, it's like barriers came down. I felt like I had somewhere to turn. I brought a small triangular cross back with me, like the one he had, a huge one on his wall where you could go and pray in front of others. And I do pray to the spirits at various times through the week on that little triangular cross on my wall. I also felt more focused in my daily life, more powerful within myself, so that I could face life's difficulties as well as its pleasures. it was just a wonderful experience to come home and feel that.
Okay. Each other here for a minute and compare notes, because we've known each other a few years now. And to remind you, one of the reasons our friendship bloomed like this, first time you came, your tape was blank.
Yeah.
And you had to come back.
Had to come back.
Now, oddly enough, the same thing happened again this year with another tape, and that's why I was sent to my journey towards Branson, Missouri, you see what I mean? And only when we learn how to pay attention to that, that's when everything opens back up. And then you took a picture, and of course I was holding the object that the other blank tape took me to. Isn't that something? Yeah. So feel free to chat back and forth here about, where do you want to go with it?
Well,
we're supposed to be relaxed here.
Yeah, I'd like to just expand a little more on the differences between the Benny Hinn revival and going to the Casa of Dominatio and seeing John of God. The treatment is much more individual and hands-on at the Casa. Sometimes John will actually take instruments and will do a physical operation on someone, like a surgeon would, except
like a psychic surgery?
Like psychic surgery, yes, very much so. What happens is, after he prays for a certain period of time, the spirit will come upon him, and any one of about 36 different spirits will come upon him, not all at once, but one by one usually, and then he will go into a trance. It's a very deep trance. He will not remember what happens afterwards. Once he is in that trance, he can operate on people, and they will not feel pain. There's no anesthetic that he uses, but it's a spiritual anesthetic. They will not feel pain. He can even operate on eyes with instruments, small scalpels and things. He will do stitches. There's cut people open. There's very little blood, if any.
I mean, are you talking about physical objects?
Physical objects, okay, yes. Yeah. He will take tumors out or take things out of their eye. He'll take, and oftentimes MDs are observing. He's asked any MD that wants to see, or any professor of medicine who wants to watch what he does, and they tape what he does too, to watch what he does so they can try to understand his methods and what he's doing. They don't fully understand, because he'll take things out of places. You might have an ailment in your stomach, and he will work on your nose, and yet your stomach will get better.
If I could interject too, he spends a lot of time working on the eyes, because the eyes are connected with other organs in the body. And also, he has never had any infections
no infections
or problems after his surgeries. They're performed in front of the entire group. And it's amazing to see that these people are not in any kind of pain. They've had no anesthetic, and yet they are in no pain. They recover. They're fine in a couple of hours after they lay down for a while.
On something else that was interesting to me that I think we should
You just have to speak up.
We noticed that the Brazilian people are very interesting. They are very fit and trim looking, and I think that their diets are much healthier than ours. Lots of fruits and vegetables, very little in the way of pastries and cakes, pies, candy bars. One thing we noticed that was pretty entertaining was that they don't, their culture does not promote eating and walking. When they're eating, they are sitting. Even in a crowded airport, you won't see people with big bottles of pop or candy bars or sandwiches. They're very tidy people in that respect. And so every time we had the tendency, like Americans do, to have food with us and eat, we would feel somewhat like the ugly American, for lack of a better word, and we kind of put it away. And so that was a difference that I noticed. Also, we joked that when you get off the plane, you immediately become a Catholic just by osmosis, because Catholicism is more or less the national religion. And we didn't see, however, a lot of people going to church. It's almost like they just are Catholic. It's not something they have to keep reinvigorating.
They have their God with them all the time.
Yes, it's just part of their culture.
Well, I don't know if you heard the beats banging here or not, but I can hear voices. That's why I went to see what it was. there's nothing on in this house.
Oh?
Well, maybe the spirits have come to bless our episode here tonight on your program.
Oh.
They are very powerful.
I thought maybe some had came on by itself. I don't know if you can hear it or not. There's like voices here. Yeah. Well, anyways, how interesting, huh?
To take up where Pat left off, the Brazilians, there are differences between the Americans and Brazilians in the way that they carry themselves and in their attitudes. They're very polite, but they're a little reserved. They're very handsome people, very trim people. The men are handsome, the women are beautiful. But they are, with the religion, they are open to religious ideas. They seem to be more open to the spirit world, because John of God is not the only faith healer, psychic healer in Brazil. And there was a powerful one who was famous in that country before him named Arrigo, or actually they were working at the same time, but Arrigo was taken in a car accident to the spirit world. It's kind of like that Bible verse, Enoch walked with God and he was not, for God took him. Anyway, Arrigo was and his name in Brazilian, that's a nickname, means country bumpkin. And he was a man like John, born in humble circumstances, was not born to wealth, did not have formal education, and he did these psychic surgeries on the sick, very delicate eye operations, took tumors out. He was arrested several times, Arrigo was, like John has been, because medical societies, the official, they have an AMA, they don't call it the AMA there, but it's like our AMA, and they're very jealous, and if someone else is healing and they don't have a medical license, they're real upset with that, and they try to get the authorities to arrest the healer. And there's a certain jealousy, because sometimes the healer who is using spirit power is doing things they can't do, and so they try to stop him.
Since you have all these adventures, and how does that compare to your pre-David Icke experiences?
Things have accelerated, moved faster in the last couple of 3 years. And you mentioned David Icke. David Icke also took a trip to South America, and this was the beginning of his accelerated journey. He went to holy sites in Peru and had an infilling of spirit, or an overshadowing of spirit.
Patricia, same question to you. I think what I want to know, you can apply these things in your everyday life, right? Does it make it easier for you to deal with life as a whole, human understanding and all of that?
Yes, it does, because you feel like you're not alone. That you have someone to ask for help. And you feel like they will come in. You have to have faith, though. You know, we each took a number of friends' pictures with us. And we presented them to John of God, and he prescribed herbal remedies for each of them that were blessed individually for them and their illnesses. And we took those home with us. We hand carried them, and we also carried the blessed water that they sell at the casa.
I still have it. I'm still drinking it.
And but the idea is that you must only take people's pictures with you who are voluntarily involving themselves in the healing process. And then when you bring these herbs home and the water home, the person has to be willing to follow the program and faithfully take the herbs and drink the water. So they're committing. It's kind of a spiritual commitment. The herbs themselves are just a very mild tranquilizer. They're passion flower. But it's the idea that you're accepting the spirits into your being to help you heal.
And the hard thing for me was not to eat pepper. I love pepper. Black pepper, that was...
We had dietary restrictions when we were on the herbs, and we had to give up peppers.
For a while, yes. If you had a spiritual operation, either visible or invisible, you had to give up sex for 40 days. And that meant try to, because sex is an energy. And it's not that sex was bad or anything, but it's an energy. And what you'll be doing is, if you're thinking about sex or engaging in sex, it will detract from your healing. You need that energy that goes into sex to go into the healing.
Go for yourself. Absolutely.
Go for your healing. And so that's the reason. It's not that there is a prohibition or a morality, against sex. Matter of fact, the religion of the Casa is a much more open, accepting religion than many. They don't, like Pat said, they don't harangue you about which church you came from, or even whether you go to church. Atheists are welcome, as well as devout believers, as well as people from other faiths, like Buddhist or Hindu. And they don't try to convert you necessarily to any dogma. They do ask that you have faith in God and believe that there's powers outside you. They have a very specific theology themselves there, which is reincarnational. They believe that we are reincarnated beings and that we are going to continue to do that until we get to a certain karmic level where we don't have to come back on that cycle here and maybe go on to another cycle. And that they believe that the spirits want to help us, and God has kind of organized these spirits. And some of them, this is their job to help us. And the more we cooperate with them, the more help we'll get.
Now back to the guides, how you all started off was, you said, well, you wanted to get a guide because you didn't speak Portuguese, and it made your journey easier. Well, life is kind of like that. We want to do it all ourselves. It's so much easier just to get that universal guide and said, hey, do it. By principle, that's the whole story, isn't it?
Our guide, Heather Cumming, was very useful to us because she spoke Portuguese, and she was able to translate for us. And also because she had involved herself so much with John of God and the Casa, we were able to be more or less first in line sometimes when others might not be first in line. Everybody got in. It's just that she was able to facilitate things for us, and that was really helpful. Also, we were required to wear white to the Casa, and the reason for that is that the spirits can and basically John of God can more easily see inside of you and see what is ailing you than if you have dark clothing on. And we noticed that some of the people that came from the outside, and they weren't necessarily with a guide, probably hadn't been instructed in that, and they came in dark clothing. Now, I'm sure he still helped them, but it just makes it easier. So you see people in white. It's like every morning walking from our hotel, and we did walk to the Casa every morning, there's a pilgrimage of people in white. And some of the people actually wear some beautiful flowing robes and gowns and lots of beautiful jewelry with crosses and crystals, things that help them to be more spiritual. But it's the white that really makes you feel like you're on a pilgrimage.
On a pilgrimage, yeah. Now back to the guide, what I was trying to say is that for people to understand the guide thing here, it's just like hiring that physical guide to make it easier. You can hire universal or guides by God, and they're actually free, you know what I mean? And they'll just take you to life, so you don't have a big stress factor here.
When John of God, I wanted to mention this because Tom had brought up the spirits that John of God incorporates. Well, when and you actually see this physical shudder go through him, and you realize that he has gone into this trance-like state. He is not the same person that walked out onto the stage. And what he is incorporating is the helping spirits, and they are, all of them are saints, well-known saints that were healers in their time. And we were told that he takes on their personality, and they have specialties, and they have different ways of dealing with the crowd. Now, I didn't notice those nuances, but Heather knows him well, and she understands
know who it is.
the
Yeah, when you run channelers, you get so they get a twinkle in their eye, and you know who's going to come. It's, oh, I know who that is, yeah.
Some are more playful, some are more stern.
You can talk back and forth here if you want to for a minute.
Okay.
Now, tell me, would you, on 1 to 10, you recommend it to everybody, somebody, very few?
Well, everyone who has a hunger and who thinks that, oh, I'd like to try something different. See, if someone's going to be a total skeptic, they may not get much out of it, because you have to put some into it. And you have to actually have at least enough faith, a small amount, like faith as a grain of a mustard seed, a very small amount, like Jesus says in the Bible, to at least do the things that they ask you to do. Drink the water, take the herbs regularly, meditate, just try to be open. A lot of times people are told that if their faith is not great enough, they won't get any healing. But John sometimes will tell people, when they tell him they don't believe, he'll say, it doesn't matter. In this instance, you're going to get healed anyway.
Anyway, yeah.
And that does happen. People have no faith at all, but at least they had enough faith to come.
To come, yeah. Now between the two of you, and you've managed to maneuver both worlds into the new thing here, I take it?
Still, well, we're still integrating them, because when you're there, this world just fades away. You don't really think much. I didn't think much about farming. I had a lot of problems when I left. I had an insurance company that was going to try to devastate me, and I still have some problems with them. And I didn't really, after a while, I didn't think about it. I was going to ask for help. You can ask for help for more than things just physical. I was going to ask for help with my insurance company. I never did. Heather said, it doesn't always matter because he reads your mind. And so when I got back from my trip, the first phone call I made, business phone call, I found that there was an insurance policy waiting for me on my agent's desk.
Yeah.
I consider that a miracle.
Yeah, now, see, the wonderful thing is once we know the mechanics of these things, works all the time. You can apply that every day. You just materialize it, you know. So your take on that, Patricia?
Well, my take is that I agree with Tom. You don't need to be particularly a religious person. You don't have to have a religion, but you have to have an open mind. You have to have some humility when you go see John of God. You have to accept the fact that there is a world out there that you don't fully understand, but it exists, and that there are forces other than yourself. You have to get beyond a very narrow view of the world. And since I have come back from the John of God experience, I have a much more enlarged vision of the possibilities in life, of the explanation, for example, of how did the earth come into being, how did people come into being. You know, I always believed in Darwinism. I am now questioning this. I have not been a very religious or spiritual person throughout my life. That is changing a lot now. And so it's just opened up all kinds of possibilities in life. I don't read the newspaper and just accept what is written there. I don't listen to the television and just accept what that person is saying. I know there is more to life than what we see. It's kind of like, I don't know if you ever
just kind of woke up there, didn't you?
Yeah, and if you ever saw The Truman Show, which was a Jim Carrey production, our lives are really a little like The Truman Show. We're on a stage, and we're just participating in a drama. But there's a whole other world out there. We're just getting a little peek under the tent as we move along.
Yeah. And then hands-on is a lot easier to comprehend than listening to it or reading to it. Would you agree?
Oh, actually being there? Yes. Yes. You will be overwhelmed by the awestruck by the peacefulness about it and the power about it, and there's a humbling experience that will come on you in a little bit. The things that you thought were so important, material things, even political things that I've been involved with for many years, I began to put them in perspective. That we're here in this veil of joy and tears on the physical earth for a short time in this life. We're supposed to do the right things, but yet we're not so desperate. You'll have another chance. You know, you shouldn't squander this one, but you still have another chance and another chance and another chance. And the bad things you see around them, the evil is very powerful in this physical world, but it's not nearly so powerful in the spiritual world. And that gives you a great deal of hope.
At 12, off 12, yeah, now. See, where am I going here? See, where am I going here? Brazil itself, give me your impression of Brazil, please.
Well, my impression is that it's a country of great contrasts geographically from north to south. It's a huge country. There are people of many different shades of skin color. Catholicism is the predominant religion, I believe, but there are other religions. It's a land of great poverty. You will see that in Brazil. But as Tom alluded to, we have certain standards we live by in the United States. Like we believe we should have an automobile and a television and a certain kind of house and a certain standard of living. Well, in Brazil, all that kind of is swept aside because the people live by our standards in extreme poverty.
Okay.
And oh, I'd go back, yes.
Go back, yes, speed out, my friend. Yeah, you would go back, yeah. I'm sorry, maybe in another time I'll make that trip with you. To kind of summarize this little clip that we have here, and Tom and I are in the studio, so I'm going to direct it to you mainly. What would you say to people after the fact now? And please speak up loud.
I would say to people to consider the trip to see John of God for various reasons. One is the spiritual healing and physical healing if you have physical problems. Also, I think it's very good for all of us to see another country, to experience another culture. It's a very humbling experience. It helps you to put your own life into perspective, and it helps you to become less materialistic. You realize that it's good health, good friends, good times, good food that makes life what it should be, rather than the material wealth that we have. Before in the tape, I alluded to the extreme poverty in Brazil. Well, yes, you see extreme poverty. You see people that are basically wearing little flip-flops on their feet all day. They don't have the consumer items that we have, but you're also seeing a people that get a great deal of joy out of life. So you come back to America, and honestly, things look a little bit overdone, a little gross, and you look at what we have, and you think, do we really need all of this? Have we overplayed what life should be from a consumer standpoint?
Now, Jeff Jarrett, you know, he came, which is a mutual acquaintance.
Yeah.
He had
Yes.
taken us on a trip. One of the things I asked him, because of your knowledge of other places and cultures, would that make you a better politician? And he said, of course. And so how would you answer that?
I think not only a better politician, but maybe a better person. Because it's going to give you more tolerance, a more rounded view. A person realizes that, okay, the United States is a big country. There's a lot of people here. But it's not the only big country. Brazil is the size of the continental United States. You know, the United States minus Alaska, then Brazil and the United States are equal. And there's a large number of people in Brazil. And you get to see that they also have a worldview that's a little bit different than ours. Americans see the world in a very black and white fashion, that, you know, we are all good and other countries are all bad, and that, you know, why don't they understand that if they just let us tell them what to do or run their lives, that they'll be better off. But yet, in other countries, they'll see it quite differently. They see the United States perhaps as interfering, as American and even European corporations as coming in to take up resources away from people and leave people in poverty or worse than they were before. And so you kind of understand a little bit more about, they say anti-Americanism. Oh, people are so ungrateful around the world. We give all this foreign aid, and then the people, they just don't seem to appreciate us. Well, you get to see that what it's like from the other end.
Yeah.
This foreign aid didn't actually help the ordinary Brazilian. What it did is it made the army bigger, or it made certain government officials wealthy because they got wealthy from corruption. And this is not something that Americans are used to hearing, because our news is very managed. For instance, this man, John of God, has, in the last 40 years, he may have treated as many as 11 million people.
Yeah.
He will stay and treat 1,000 people a day. If people come to see him, he will stay all day long and see everyone. It may be short and quick, only a few seconds, but it's powerful, and no one is turned away. But yet, in this country, most people have never heard of him.
Never heard of him,
See?
yeah.
So our
Now-
news is managed. In Brazil, a lot of people have heard of him.
Yeah, now we're going to be running out of time, so I'm going to put this over here and get a close-up of you, Miss Patricia. You're a very busy woman, and we appreciate you coming to the backwoods here, or to my, where I have landed, and to help us with that. And we will do you proud tomorrow when we finish this.
Well, I've really appreciated everything you do on your show, Lillian, and
Yeah.
it's a joy to come here to be with you tonight.
So now that you know where I live, so you don't be a stranger, and thank you.
Thank you, Lillian.
Oh, I lost your head here.
We've got to get that back.
Yeah, well, cool. And so, and then we'll conclude this in the studio, thanks.
They'll give you a general idea with where Tom was going, and I'm going to get you back to your thought. This is a physical knife, and so you saw physically.
I physically saw what you'll see on the documentary with Vision thing. That first day when John came on the stage, they prayed, and then he incorporated. Like a wind came over him. It's like he took a huge breath and he shuddered, and then he was like a different person, like in a trance. And there was a woman who had came up on the stage for a physical operation, and there are assistants who have trays of instruments. He took a scalpel, and she's leaning up against the wall, and he goes down her throat with the scalpel, and he did a physical operation with that scalpel. No anesthetic and no antiseptic, either one. It was very fast. And she didn't flinch or anything. She gagged a little bit because someone's down her throat. And I did talk to that same woman later, a few days later, ask her what she felt. And she said, really, there was no sensation other than someone was down her throat.
No,
she had no pain. He asked for a doctor, if there was a doctor in the audience, to view what he had just done. And there was. There was a doctor in our party, a periodontist, a dental surgeon, named Roger. And he came up from New York City. And he came up and viewed down the woman's throat and then turned and told us in English, and it was translated into Portuguese, I've just seen a very exquisite curette of the throat. I don't know exactly what the operation was for, what the purpose of it was, but it's every bit as fine as anything you would see in a hospital in New York City by skilled surgeons.
Yeah.
And he said it looked to be done very quickly. I was observing from one side and then got to see down the woman's throat, and he says it's very well done.
Yeah, so now I have viewed the video, and like I said, and hopefully we're going to be able to share that with you. I understand you have to run, and our time is up, and you promised to come back in a few weeks, and we're going to knock some other things around, huh?
Okay, we'll talk about a few other things, other adventures that have overtaken me in the last year or two.
Cool, so come see us again next week, when we're going to tackle another very interesting subject. So we'll see you next week. Say goodbye, Miss E.T. Bye, Tom. Thank you.